If you've ever been through tough times, then you know it can feel like you're going through hell and back. And while you're going through it, it's very much one of the last places you want to be. But looking back on those times, do you regret it? Because you shouldn't. Those tough times can be a treasure trove of growth, wisdom, and resilience. So if you look back with resentment, then there's an unlearned lesson that you may be forced to revisit, a missed opportunity for growth. My name is Dawood Shabazz. You can call me Truth, and this is The Solutionist. Welcome back. I want to share with you a story about one of the toughest times in my life. A time when I didn't know how I was going to make it through. Looking back, I still don't even know how I made it through. I had been repairing motorcycles for a number of years, but at this time I was about 2 years into renting a commercial location to do business in. Everything was going well until it wasn't. One day, after finishing up a side project for a friend of mine with my sons, we were shooting a little basketball and I ruptured my Achilles. And at first I didn't think it was that bad, but by the time we got from where we were to home, my boys had to carry me in the house. I couldn't even walk. So I'm thinking to myself how that's gonna slow down work and how it's gonna affect the income. And a couple days later, I get a call. There was a break-in and about 10 or 11 bikes had been taken overnight from the shop. These are customers' bikes that are in for repair. To make matters worse, at this time, I didn't have a conventional insurance company. I was self-insuring. So that made things quite a bit tougher. I was in a position where I had to recover or replace these customers' bikes in a timely manner, in addition to being on crutches at the time from a ruptured Achilles. It was tough, and it got tougher. Over the course of the next few weeks, there were 3 or 4 more break-ins, which was really tough to deal with. And on top of that, we had just signed a lease on this new place. Around that same time, I received a call from a friend that my second wife, with whom I was currently separated, had been murdered. She was stabbed 20-something times by her quote-unquote boyfriend. And that was, it was a lot. So in the midst of being on crutches, my second wife had just been murdered. I'm still dealing with these break-ins. I maxed out all my credit cards. I wasn't able to make rent at the shop. And I was only able to make a partial rent at home. And being though we had just signed a lease, the landlord really didn't like that, and he would not accept the partial payment that I had, and he evicted us. Me, my wife, and our 6 children were evicted from our new home. We literally had nowhere to go. And we were in hotels for a while. For a few months, we were in hotels until we were able to, pull ourselves out of that. Every day, I had to, come up with the money for us to survive. That's when I say I don't know how. Like, I look back and I don't know how I was able to perform at that level, because when you're able to move at your own pace, we tend to either do the bare minimum or we do well, but it's rarely our peak performance. And when we're in tough times, it allows us to really see what we're capable of. It unveils our powers. Those times taught me a lot about resilience, taught me a lot about consistency. There's a lot of pain there that I could have allowed to destroy myself, but fortunately I was able to turn that pain into power and use it as an energy source to fuel my way towards my goals and recovering from what I had gone through. And what sparked this video is, looking back, I was thinking about how tough it was, but I noticed that I didn't have any resentment, that I didn't regret it at all. If I could go back and not go through that, I wouldn't change it. And that may sound odd, but there's so much that I learned during those times. There's so much growth that came from those times. And I would be foolish to give that back. And I know there's people that's gonna say that's easy to say now that I'm not going through it. And it's a little different when you're going through it, which is true. And I replay those painful times over and over again. And I remember wondering why it was happening to me. But the growth came when I realized it was happening for me instead of happening to me. So let's get to the solutions. How do you break free from that resentment? How do you avoid that resentment altogether? Well, the first thing is acknowledging that resentment, and then understanding that resentment will keep you stuck in the past. And additionally, the resentment would not only keep you from learning the lesson, it'll keep you from even seeing that the lesson is there available to learn. Next is learning to shift your perspective. Instead of asking why you, ask what can you learn from this? Examine the situation and see what skills, wisdom, and experience you can attain from the situation. And it may be tough, but it's an obligation if you're dedicated to your mental health and your well-being. And lastly is gratitude. When you're focused on the blessings that you do have and the love that you have around you and the talents and the skills that you have, then it's a lot more difficult for those negative feelings and negative thoughts to invade your space. Embracing your challenges in life truly is a superpower. And I encourage you to look back at your tough times that you've been through and see what growth you can harvest. Focus on the positive and don't focus on the lack. Y'all take care.
No crime to have a dream. Investments are money. Ain't no crime to want the cream. Okay to be dedicated. It's a priority. And I'm not just speaking for me.